Do not skip this, because what I'm about to say might quietly undo years of effort. You can repeat the perfect affirmation for a decade and nothing will move. Not because you are unlucky, not because the universe is testing you, and not because manifestation needs more time. What if the real reason nothing shifts is far simpler and far more confronting? The field you are trying to influence does not understand language. It does not process grammar. It does not care how confident you sound when you declare your desires. Words are symbols. Reality responds to signals. In physics, possibility collapses into form when consciousness interacts with it. But consciousness is not a sentence in your mind. It is the total atmosphere of your being. It is your breath, your muscle tone, the subtle expectation humming beneath your thoughts. You can say, "I am abundant," while your shoulders are tight and your jaw is bracing. You can write goals every morning while your nervous system is quietly preparing for disappointment. On the surface, the script sounds aligned. Underneath, the body is whispering, "Not yet." Which message do you think reality receives? The body cannot counterfeit safety. The autonomic system does not perform for affirmations. If your physiology is organized around vigilance, then vigilance is the signal, and the field mirrors organization, not vocabulary. Many people believe manifestation is a matter of repetition. If they say it enough, feel it loudly enough, push hard enough, reality will eventually comply. But repetition without regulation only magnifies the internal split. The more you try to convince the outside world, the more your subconscious anchors into the identity of waiting. You are not just thinking thoughts. You are transmitting patterns. Your heart rhythm carries information. Your breathing cadence carries information. The electrical activity of your body extends beyond your skin. This is not metaphor. Biology broadcasts, so when people say the universe is listening, they do not mean it is hearing your voice. They mean existence is responding to the coherence of your system, and here is where it becomes subtle. Intensity is not alignment. Trying harder is often disguised fear. Excitement forced from urgency is still urgency. Emotional pressure is not the same as internal stability. Stability communicates something entirely different. It communicates certainty. It communicates completion. It says, "This reality is already normalized within me." Notice the difference. When you crave something, your system contracts toward it. Contraction carries the signal of absence. When something feels natural, your system relaxes around it. Relaxation carries the signal of integration. The field mirrors integration. This is why manifestations sometimes appear only after you stop obsessing. Not because the universe rewards detachment, but because your internal distortion dissolves. When you stop trying to bend reality, your physiology settles, and coherence becomes readable. So what does the field actually register? It registers the rhythm of your heart, the steadiness of your breath, the quiet confidence of an identity that no longer feels like it is reaching. It registers whether you are broadcasting lack or completion. This is not mysticism dressed as science. It is informational physics meeting neurobiology. The observer effect suggests that observation influences probability, but observation is not passive looking. It is the state of the observer that matters. And the real question becomes this: who are you being while you are asking? Observation is not passive sight. It is the texture of the one who observes. And that texture is shaped by internal order. So the question shifts again. Not what should I say? Not how many times should I repeat it? But what condition am I in when I speak? Because the field is responsive, yes, but it is responsive to organization. If your nervous system is the instrument, then manifestation is no longer a mental performance. It becomes biological alignment. It becomes the stability of your internal climate. It becomes whether your system feels safe sustaining the life you claim to desire. The nervous system moves in two primary directions: regulation or survival. In regulation, the body communicates safety. In survival, it prepares for impact. And a system preparing for impact cannot simultaneously receive expansion. When the brain is locked in high alert, it scans for error. It searches for what is missing. It anticipates interruption. Even if you declare prosperity, the underlying tone is caution, and caution communicates incompletion. Slower, coherent brain states create something entirely different. The subconscious opens. Emotional memory softens. Identity becomes flexible, and identity is the real attractor. Meditation is not decoration for the spiritually inclined. It is neurological training. It teaches the body that it does not need to grip reality in order to survive. As internal tension dissolves, order increases. When order increases, your signal becomes consistent, and consistency is powerful. The field does not respond to how badly you want something. It responds to whether your system can maintain it without destabilizing. If your baseline is stress, you will unconsciously push away experiences that require calm to hold. Not because you are self-sabotaging in a dramatic way, but because unfamiliar peace can feel threatening to a body trained in chaos. The field does not override your baseline. Your baseline defines normal. Here is the paradox. The field will not deliver a reality that your body interprets as unsafe. Growth can feel unsafe. Visibility can feel unsafe. Intimacy can feel unsafe. Financial expansion can feel unsafe. Not logically, but physiologically. If attention once meant criticism, success may trigger contraction. If closeness once led to loss, love may activate defense. If money once carried pressure, abundance may awaken strain. So the field mirrors what your system is prepared to normalize. This is why emotional coherence matters more than verbal intention. When your internal processes synchronize into order, something quiet but profound happens. The body is no longer bracing. It is no longer anticipating collapse. It is not rehearsing disappointment. It is simply here. Presence without urgency is a powerful state. No chasing, no scanning, no subtle measuring of outcomes. That state communicates integration, and integration reorganizes probability. Notice how easily this is disrupted. You meditate, you feel centered, you sense alignment, and then you check for evidence. You look for signs. You evaluate timing. Evaluation reactivates control. Control reactivates tension. Tension interrupts order. It is not that the universe punishes impatience. Impatience alters your physiology, and physiology is the language being read. You are not persuading an external authority. You are reorganizing internal information. When your internal information stabilizes, external patterns reflect that structure. Your body is not separate from the field. It is a localized expression of it. So when manifestation feels inconsistent, ask something deeper. How consistent is your regulation? Are you moving between certainty and analysis? Between embodiment and doubt? Between calm integration and mental negotiation? Because reality does not respond to occasional alignment. It responds to what you have stabilized into. An inconsistent internal pattern produces inconsistent external reflection. A stabilized identity produces a stabilized world, and stability is almost invisible. It is not intense. It is not dramatic. It does not try to prove itself. It feels like ease before evidence appears. It feels like trust without negotiation. It feels like being undisturbed even while nothing has changed. That is what the field organizes around. Not volume, not emotional spikes, not how passionately you declare your vision. Coherence. When your system stops bargaining with reality, reality stops appearing delayed. Because distortion fades, the message becomes clear. There is a distinct difference between the energy of having and the energy of waiting. Waiting looks calm on the surface, but internally it is active. It is measuring. It is leaning toward a future that has not yet been absorbed into identity. Even if you call it patience, there is often a subtle orientation toward absence, a quiet tracking of what has not arrived. Tracking sustains separation. In quantum theory, before a system resolves, multiple outcomes coexist. Observation influences which outcome stabilizes. But the overlooked factor is this: the observer's certainty affects the resolution. Translate that inward. If you repeatedly observe the gap, you reinforce the gap. If you repeatedly measure time, you strengthen time. If you repeatedly notice what is missing, you feed information about missing. Information organizes experience. So what does the energy of having actually feel like? Not adrenaline, not anticipation, not euphoric peaks. It often feels neutral, settled, almost ordinary, because the nervous system is no longer mobilizing toward it. It has categorized it as familiar. This is why true alignment rarely feels like fireworks. It feels like quiet integration, like something that has already been filed into your internal sense of normal. When something is truly yours, you do not check on it. You do not rehearse it mentally. You do not question its existence. You live as if it is part of your environment. That assumption is stabilized identity. When your internal self-concept already includes the desired reality, your signal shifts. You are no longer requesting, you are confirming. Confirmation resolves faster than desire. Begging does not work because it is noise layered over insecurity. It is intensity covering instability, and instability prolongs uncertainty. But when you move into the state of having, emotional charge softens. The identity settles, the internal narrative quiets, the field reorganizes around that coherence. Consciousness collapses possibility into experience. But consciousness is not thought alone. It is unified awareness embodied. If your embodied awareness still says this is not mine, reality reflects that hesitation. The transition from waiting to having is not about pretending. It is about recalibrating your internal reference point. It is about removing the desire as a measure of your worth. It is about no longer using outcomes to evaluate your progress. It is about dissolving the subtle tension around the subject. When you release measurement, you release distortion. When distortion dissolves, clarity increases. This is why change often happens right after genuine surrender. Not because surrender is manipulation, but because it removes the final layer of contradiction. The system stops swinging between hope and doubt. It stabilizes. And stabilization communicates completion. Completion communicates inevitability. And inevitability resolves probability. The field is not evaluating you. It is reflecting you. If impatience lingers beneath your calm exterior, delay mirrors that tone. If completion has settled into your identity, movement mirrors that certainty. The practice then is not improved wording. It is the shift from "when will this happen" to "this is already unfolding," not as forced optimism, but as regulated knowing. When the body is no longer oriented toward waiting, reality no longer echoes postponement. Something in the signal changes. It carries finality, and finality reorganizes outcomes. There is a stage where everything inside you becomes still. You are no longer pushing, no longer adjusting, no longer strategizing internally. It can feel unfamiliar, almost like nothing is happening. The mind associates effort with progress, so when effort dissolves, it assumes stagnation. But often, that quiet is the moment of highest internal order. Coherence rarely feels spectacular. It feels complete. It feels like there is no internal debate left to resolve. When there is no debate, there is no distortion. Notice how much energy is usually spent trying to assist reality. Planning, correcting, reaffirming, monitoring. Each subtle adjustment introduces variation. Variation creates instability. But when you truly settle into "it is done," your system stops oscillating. Thoughts lose urgency. The future is no longer a question mark hovering in front of you. You are not suppressing desire. You are no longer defining yourself in relation to its absence. This is where many people become uncomfortable. Without urgency, the ego feels unemployed. It whispers, "Shouldn't you be doing something?" It wants to reintroduce effort. It wants to regain control. But control reintroduces fragmentation. Reality does not require force. It requires clarity. And clarity emerges from internal quiet. Participation in creation does not mean micromanaging outcomes. It means aligning with the version of yourself for whom the outcome is natural. Once alignment stabilizes, there is nothing left to adjust. Interference after alignment only disrupts what was already resolving. From the outside, it may appear that nothing is changing. Internally, however, your structure is reorganizing. The shift is subtle but decisive. When the body no longer prepares for disappointment, it communicates readiness. And readiness alters what can enter your experience. Safety attracts, ease allows, non-resistance integrates. Doing less internally often creates more externally because fewer fluctuations mean clearer organization. Here is where a quiet commitment matters, not a dramatic promise, a silent decision, a decision to stop interfering with your own alignment, a decision to remain steady even when external proof has not yet appeared. If you notice that calm beginning to root itself inside you, protect it. Reinforce the state, not the sentence. Return to the feeling of settled completion rather than rehearsing declarations. Stability, once maintained, becomes identity. And when identity stabilizes, resolution becomes inevitable. But there is one final layer most people overlook. Even after the nervous system calms, even after obsession fades, there can still be a subtle negotiation in the background, a quiet condition. I trust this, as long as it happens soon. I feel aligned, as long as nothing goes wrong. I believe, but I am still watching. That hidden contingency fragments coherence. True alignment contains no clauses. It is not "I have this if." It is simply "this is." When that simplicity becomes embodied, there is no inner bargaining left. No timeline management, no contingency planning, just identity. And identity, once fully assumed, does not wait. It often sounds like this: I trust, but I hope it happens soon. I know it's unfolding, but what if it doesn't? That quiet hesitation is enough to fragment your internal structure. It is subtle, almost invisible, yet coherence is precise. Even a faint inner condition keeps reality divided between two timelines. Negotiation means you are still comparing what is with what should be, still referencing the clock, still tying your steadiness to visible confirmation. As long as there is comparison, there is separation, and separation sustains delay. True coherence feels different. It feels like the question has dissolved on its own, not answered, not forced away, simply no longer relevant. When the question dissolves, something inside you settles further. The future is no longer an object in front of you. It becomes a dimension you are already standing within internally. You are not waiting for life to change. You are inhabiting the version of yourself for whom change is natural. Here, identity matters more than intention. Intention reaches outward. Identity defines what is normal. Intention says, I want that experience. Identity says, that experience belongs in my world. And the field organizes around what feels normal to you. When identity stabilizes, outcomes stop feeling extraordinary. They begin to feel consistent. This is why manifestation eventually stops feeling like effort. Not because you mastered control, but because you released negotiation. You are no longer asking reality to prove something to you. You are no longer seeking reassurance through signs. You are no longer bracing for disappointment. Your system has accepted the possibility so fully that it no longer reacts to it. There is openness. Openness does not defend. It does not guard against loss before gain arrives. It does not shrink in anticipation of pain. From openness, creation moves without friction. At a certain depth, desire detaches from your sense of worth. You are whole before the outcome. And from wholeness, expression becomes fluid. The tension between who you are and what you want disappears, and that tension was the only distortion. Pause for a moment. As you read this, notice your internal state. Is there urgency? Is there subtle monitoring? Or is there a quiet settling? That settling is the doorway. The moment you stop negotiating with reality, reality stops reflecting negotiation. Alignment locks in. When alignment locks in, you do not need to repeat it. You do not need to protect it. It becomes your baseline. You are not trying to be coherent. You are coherent. You are not attempting to manifest. You are allowing expression. You stop chasing signs. You stop interpreting silence as rejection. You stop managing timing because you understand something simple and profound. When your internal structure stabilizes, external reorganization is already in motion, even if your senses have not yet updated. Most people step out of this state too soon. They settle, then they analyze. They trust, then they measure. Each measurement reintroduces fragmentation. But when you remain steady long enough, steadiness becomes identity. And identity does not fluctuate with temporary evidence. It does not collapse under delay. It is internally sourced. From that level, manifestation is no longer a technique. It is a byproduct of who you are. You are not waiting. You are not convincing. You are not hoping. You are being. And when being becomes stable, Reality has nothing left to resist. It simply responds.